She was the girl who captured the world's heart, a shy young woman who became the most famous princess in history. From her humble beginnings to the dazzling heights of royal life, Princess Diana's story is one of love, heartbreak, courage, and compassion. But behind the fairy tale was a life filled with struggles, secrets, and a relentless battle with the pressures of the spotlight. Join us as we journey through the remarkable life of Diana Spencer, the People's Princess, whose legacy continues to inspire millions around the world. Princess Diana's childhood. A royal life shadowed by loss and loneliness. Diana Frances Spencer was born on July 1, 1961, at Park House on the Royal Sandringham Estate in Norfolk, England. She was the fourth of 5 children born to Viscount and Viscountess Althorpe, later the Earl and Countess Spencer. The Spencer family was well-established British aristocracy, with roots going back centuries and closely connected to the royal family. From the outside, Diana's early life seemed privileged and protected. But beneath the surface, her childhood was marked by emotional turmoil and instability that few could have imagined. Early family life. Diana's parents, John Spencer and Frances Roche, had a complicated and troubled marriage. Frances was a free-spirited, artistic woman who struggled to conform to the rigid expectations of the aristocracy, while John was a traditionalist, deeply rooted in duty and hierarchy. The couple's relationship was often fraught with tension and unhappiness. Their arguments and disagreements created a tense atmosphere at home that Diana and her siblings keenly felt, even as very young children. The divorce that shattered a childhood. When Diana was just 7 years old, her parents' marriage ended in a bitter and public divorce, a scandalous event in the early 1970s British upper class, when divorce was still taboo. Frances left the family home, and Diana and her siblings were primarily raised by their father, Earl Spencer. This separation was devastating for Diana, who later described it as a profound loss that left her feeling abandoned and emotionally adrift. Her mother would go on to remarry and live a largely separate life, while Diana's father became the central parental figure. However, the emotional scars from her mother's absence and the family's brokenness would remain with Diana throughout her life. School years and early struggles. Diana attended Riddlesworth Hall, a small boarding school, and later moved on to West Heath Girls' School in Kent. Though popular and bright, she was painfully shy and struggled to fit in with her more privileged and socially confident peers. At West Heath, Diana was often described as a bit of an outsider, not because she lacked status, but because she was introverted and socially awkward. She excelled in sports and music but struggled academically. Her time at school was marked by bouts of low self-esteem and a yearning for acceptance and love that she often felt was missing at home. A troubled home life. Though Diana's father was loving in his own way, the Spencer household was not a haven of emotional warmth. There were rumors of coldness and strictness, with little open affection between parents and children. Diana later admitted in interviews and biographies that she felt lonely and unwanted as a child, a feeling that haunted her well into adulthood. Her mother's absence was a particular source of pain. Frances was often distant, and Diana sometimes felt like an afterthought in her mother's life. Early signs of a caring heart. Despite her struggles, Diana showed early signs of the compassion and empathy that would later define her public life. She was deeply caring toward animals and younger children and displayed a natural kindness that set her apart. Friends and family described her as sweet-natured and sensitive, qualities that would later charm the world, but that as a child often made her vulnerable. A childhood shadowed by insecurity. Though born into privilege, Diana's early years were anything but carefree. The fractures in her family, the emotional neglect, and her own shy nature combined to create a childhood shadowed by insecurity and a deep longing for love and acceptance. This vulnerability would later shape much of her life, fueling both her public warmth and private struggles. How Diana met Prince Charles and their fairy tale wedding. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the British royal family was facing intense public scrutiny, especially surrounding the personal life of Prince Charles, heir to the throne. Charles had been romantically involved with Camilla Parker Bowles for several years, but their relationship was complicated and, ultimately, not moving toward marriage. The meeting. Diana Spencer first met Prince Charles in 1977 when she was just 16 years old. At the time, she was the niece of Lady Fermoy, who was Charles's former nanny, so there was already a family connection. Their first encounter was brief and casual. Charles reportedly found Diana nice, but it was far from love at first sight. Over the next few years, their paths crossed occasionally at family events. But Diana remained just one of many young women in Charles's social circle. The courtship, in 1980, when Diana was 19, the Spencer family home, Althorpe, was undergoing renovations, and Diana's older sisters, Sarah and Jane, were both dating men connected to Prince Charles. Initially, it was Sarah who was considered a potential bride for Charles. But when that relationship didn't materialize, the focus turned to Diana. The courtship was sudden and intense. Charles began to pay more attention to Diana, and she found herself thrust into the spotlight almost overnight. Diana was young, innocent, and fresh-faced, everything the public and the royal family seemed to desire in a princess. Despite her youth and relative inexperience, Diana quickly became the center of media attention as Charles's relationship with her developed. Engagement announcement on February 24, 1981. The engagement between Prince Charles and Diana Spencer was officially announced. The news sent shockwaves across the globe. Diana, at just 19, was suddenly engaged to the future king, catapulted into one of the most famous roles in the world. The ring Charles gave Diana featured a 12-carat oval blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, a design that would later become iconic and even inspire the engagement ring worn by Catherine Middleton, the current Princess of Wales. The wedding, a global spectacle. The royal wedding took place on July 29, 1981, at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. It was a grand, meticulously planned event, broadcast live to an estimated 750 million people worldwide. One of the most watched television events of the time. The day was filled with pomp and ceremony. Diana wore a stunning ivory silk taffeta and antique lace gown with a 25-foot train, designed by David and Elizabeth Emanuel. Her look, complete with a delicate veil and sparkling tiara, became an enduring image of royal elegance. The public reaction. The world was captivated by the fairy tale, the shy, beautiful girl marrying the heir to the throne. Diana was instantly transformed into a global icon. Crowds lined the streets of London, waving flags and cheering as the couple paraded through the city in a horse-drawn carriage. The media dubbed her the People's Princess. And for a moment, it seemed like the beginning of a perfect royal story. Behind the fairy tale, complex realities, but beneath the surface, the wedding masked a much more complicated reality. Prince Charles's heart was still with Camilla Parker Bowles, a fact that only became fully public years later. Diana, young and inexperienced, was entering a role filled with pressure, expectation, and tradition she didn't fully understand. She was stepping into an institution that valued protocol and appearances above personal happiness. The wedding may have been a global celebration, but for Diana, it marked the start of a challenging, often lonely journey. One that would test her strength, her resilience, and ultimately change the monarchy forever. The birth of the princes. William and Harry. After their spectacular wedding in 1981, Princess Diana and Prince Charles embarked on the next chapter of their lives, becoming parents. The arrival of their children was not only a personal milestone, but also a matter of immense public interest and national importance. The future of the British monarchy rested heavily on the next generation. The birth of Prince William on June 21, 1982, Diana gave birth to her first son, Prince William Arthur Philip Louis, at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London. The event was watched closely by millions around the world, as the birth of an heir was seen as a critical moment for the royal family. Diana insisted on a relatively modern approach for a royal birth. She chose to deliver in a hospital rather than a palace, and opted for a natural birth with minimal medical intervention, which was unusual for royal births at the time. This decision was part of her broader effort to present a more relatable and human image of the monarchy. When Prince William was born, he weighed 7 pounds, 1 ounce, and was immediately hailed as the future King of England. Diana famously told the world she was very happy, but privately, she was also deeply aware of the immense responsibilities now resting on her shoulders as a mother and royal figure. A mother's love and challenges from the beginning, Diana was fiercely devoted to her sons. She was determined to give them a childhood as normal as possible despite their extraordinary circumstances. She famously pushed back against royal traditions that she felt distanced her boys from ordinary life, insisting on taking them to playgrounds and riding bicycles with them in public. However, the pressures on Diana were enormous. As the mother of the future king, Her every move was scrutinized by the media and the royal family. The couple's strained marriage and Diana's own struggles with mental health often made motherhood more challenging than it appeared. The birth of Prince Harry. 2 years later, on September 15, 1984, Diana gave birth to her second son, Prince Henry Charles Albert David, affectionately known as Harry. Like William, Harry was born at St. Mary's Hospital in London. Harry's birth was greeted with joy, but it was also a quieter event compared to the arrival of his older brother. As the second son, Harry was not directly in line for the throne, but he still held a vital place in the royal succession. Diana's love for Harry was just as fierce and protective. She was known to be especially close to her younger son, often doting on him with affection and warmth that sometimes contrasted with the stiff formality of royal life. Balancing royal duty and family life. Despite the public adoration and the joyous arrivals of her children, Diana's role as a mother was often complicated by the demands of royal duty and the ongoing strains in her marriage. She was navigating a world where appearances mattered above all else, and yet she sought to be a modern, hands-on mother who showed genuine love and care. Her efforts to shield her sons from the intense media spotlight were only partially successful, as William and Harry grew up constantly under public watch. A legacy of love. The births of Prince William and Prince Harry were defining moments in Diana's life. They brought immense joy but also deepened her awareness of the challenges facing the royal family. Her dedication to her sons shaped much of her later life and legacy. She worked tirelessly to ensure they grew up with a sense of compassion and humanity, values she herself embodied despite the struggles she faced. Camilla Parker Bowles, the third presence in Diana and Charles's marriage, the story of Princess Diana and Prince Charles cannot be fully understood without knowing about Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman who loomed large in their lives, both before and during their marriage. A relationship before Diana, Charles, and Camilla's relationship dated back to the early 1970s. They met in 1970 and quickly became close, sharing many interests and a deep connection. However, at the time, Camilla was seen as unsuitable for marriage into the royal family due to her background and previous relationships. Ultimately, Charles was persuaded to end their relationship, and Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973. Though separated, Charles and Camilla remained in each other's lives, maintaining a friendship that would later rekindle into something far more complicated. Camilla's shadow over the royal courtship. When Charles began courting Diana Spencer in 1980, Camilla was still married to Andrew Parker Bowles but remained a figure in Charles's world. Diana was young and unaware of the depth of Charles's ongoing attachment to Camilla. The relationship between Charles and Camilla was, at best, an open secret in royal circles. Friends and insiders often whispered that Charles's heart was never fully given to Diana, which created an invisible but persistent tension beneath the surface. The strain on Diana and Charles's marriage. After Diana and Charles married in 1981, Camilla's presence continued to haunt their relationship. Charles resumed an affair with Camilla in the late 1980s, a betrayal that deeply wounded Diana. In the years that followed, rumors and tabloid revelations about Charles and Camilla's relationship became widespread. Diana was forced to live publicly, with the knowledge of her husband's infidelity, a pain she later spoke about candidly. In a 1995 BBC Panorama interview, Diana famously said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Her words exposed the painful reality behind the royal facade and further damaged the marriage. Public and private reactions. Camilla's role in the royal triangle was controversial. To much of the British public, she was initially seen as the other woman, the cause of heartbreak and royal strife. Diana, meanwhile, was viewed as the innocent victim. But over time, public opinion shifted. Camilla maintained a discreet profile, avoided the media spotlight, and slowly worked to rebuild her reputation. The road to acceptance. After Diana's tragic death in 1997, Camilla's relationship with Charles continued quietly for several years. The couple eventually married in 2005, and Camilla became the Duchess of Cornwall. While some royal fans still resent Camilla's role in the past, many have come to accept her as a part of the modern royal family. Her relationship with Charles remains a complex, often painful chapter in Diana's story, but also a reminder of the imperfect realities behind royal life. The breakdown and divorce of Princess Diana and Prince Charles. The marriage between Princess Diana and Prince Charles, once celebrated as a fairy tale, gradually unraveled over the years amid heartbreak, betrayal, and intense public scrutiny. Their divorce marked a dramatic and painful chapter in the history of the British monarchy. The slow collapse. From early on, cracks had begun to show in the royal marriage. Charles's continuing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles cast a long shadow, and Diana's growing unhappiness became harder to hide. Throughout the 1980s, their relationship was strained by mutual distrust and emotional distance. The couple lived largely separate lives within the same palace, with Charles often away on official duties or personal trips, and Diana increasingly isolated. Both struggled with personal issues. Diana battled bulimia and depression, while Charles wrestled with his own dissatisfaction and conflicting responsibilities. Public exposure of private struggles. Despite the royal family's usual secrecy, details of their marital troubles began to leak to the press. The media, hungry for scandal, reported on the couple's tensions, infidelities, and unhappiness, intensifying public interest. The British public was captivated and sympathetic toward Diana, who was portrayed as a vulnerable and courageous figure, battling the rigid royal system. The separation. In December 1992, Queen Elizabeth II announced the official separation of Charles and Diana. The news was met with mixed reactions, relief from some who saw it as inevitable, sadness from others who hoped for reconciliation. The separation was painful for both. Diana moved out of Kensington Palace and took up residence in a separate London home. Despite their broken relationship, Charles and Diana maintained their public duties, especially co-parenting their young sons. The 1995 BBC interview, Breaking the Silence. The defining moment in the divorce saga came in 1995, when Diana gave a groundbreaking interview to BBC's Panorama program. In an extraordinary act of openness, she spoke candidly about the turmoil behind palace walls. She admitted to struggling with bulimia and self-harm. She confirmed the existence of a love triangle, famously saying, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." She expressed feelings of loneliness and emotional neglect. The interview shocked the royal establishment and the public alike. Diana's frankness broke decades of royal protocol and forever changed the public's perception of the monarchy. The final divorce, after years of separation and legal negotiations, Diana and Charles's divorce was finalized on August 28, 1996. As part of the settlement, Diana lost the style, Her Royal Highness, but retained the title, Princess of Wales. She received a financial settlement and agreed to give up any claims to the throne. Both agreed to continue co-parenting their 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. The divorce was historic, as it was one of the first high-profile royal divorces in modern British history, marking a turning point in the monarchy's approach to personal relationships and public image. Aftermath and impact. The divorce freed Diana from the constraints of a loveless marriage, but it also left her vulnerable to media intrusion and ongoing emotional struggles. She continued to rebuild her life, focusing on humanitarian work and raising her sons. For Charles, the divorce was a personal and public humiliation, but also allowed him to eventually pursue a relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles more openly. The royal family faced a difficult period of reflection and transformation as they grappled with changing public expectations and the realities of modern life. Conclusion. The divorce of Princess Diana and Prince Charles was not just the end of a marriage. It was a seismic event that exposed the pressures, contradictions, and vulnerabilities of the British monarchy. It revealed the human cost behind royal duty, and forever altered the way the world viewed the royal family. Princess Diana's revenge. Taking control of her life and legacy. After the painful unraveling of her marriage to Prince Charles and the public humiliation of their divorce, Princess Diana could have disappeared quietly into the background. Instead, she chose a different path. One of resilience, courage, and redefining her role in the world on her own terms. This is the story of how Diana turned what many might call revenge. But she didn't seek to harm or retaliate. Rather, she took back her voice, rebuilt her image, and won the hearts of millions worldwide. Reclaiming her voice after the divorce in 1996, Diana refused to be sidelined. She spoke openly about her struggles with mental health, her unhappy marriage, and the pressures of royal life, topics that had previously been taboo in the royal family. Her 1995 BBC Panorama interview was a landmark moment. By bravely sharing her story, Diana broke royal silence and exposed the human cost of life under constant scrutiny. This candidness was a form of revenge against the secrecy and control that had oppressed her. She took control of her own narrative and forced the world to see her not as a princess defined by royal protocol, but as a woman with real struggles and strength. Championing humanitarian causes, Diana's greatest revenge was perhaps her humanitarian work. She threw herself into charitable causes with passion and authenticity, far beyond what was expected of a royal. She championed the fight against AIDS at a time when stigma and fear dominated public perception. Her willingness to touch and comfort AIDS patients challenged misconceptions and changed attitudes worldwide. Diana took on the mine-clearing campaign, visiting war zones and drawing attention to the horrors of landmines, helping to push governments toward change. She worked tirelessly for homeless shelters, children's hospitals, and countless other causes. Through this work, Diana redefined what it meant to be a public figure, moving from royal duty to genuine global compassion. Her humanitarianism became a powerful form of personal and public triumph. Breaking royal conventions, Diana's style, charisma, and openness broke the mold of traditional royal behavior. She was accessible, warm, and emotionally transparent, qualities that made her beloved by the public but also controversial within the palace. By being herself, flawed, vulnerable, and genuine, she took a quiet revenge against the strict, distant image of royalty. She showed the world a more human and relatable side to the monarchy. Influencing future generations, Diana's life after her divorce inspired a new generation of royals and public figures to embrace openness and use their platforms for positive change. Her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, have carried forward her legacy of compassion, mental health advocacy, and humanitarian work, a lasting testament to her impact. The ultimate legacy. Princess Diana's revenge was never about bitterness or spite. It was about reclaiming her identity, reshaping her story, and changing the world on her own terms. In doing so, she transformed from a young, vulnerable princess trapped in a difficult marriage into a global icon of kindness, courage, and resilience, a legacy that continues to inspire millions. The final days, life and plans. Before the crash in the months leading up to her death, Diana was living a life of renewed independence and dedication to her charitable work. She was also navigating complex personal relationships and coping with intense media scrutiny. The relationship with Dodi Fayed. By mid-1997, Diana was publicly linked with Dodi Fayed, the son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. Their relationship had become serious, and they were spending significant time together, including vacations on the French Riviera. This relationship brought Diana renewed happiness, but also intensified paparazzi attention. The media frenzy around their outings was relentless, with photographers often following them aggressively. The fateful trip to Paris on August 30th, 1997. Diana and Dodi were in Paris, dining at the Ritz Hotel, owned by Mohammed Al Fayed's family. After their meal, they left the hotel late at night, aiming to avoid the swarm of paparazzi outside. To escape the cameras, they took a high-speed car ride through Paris with their driver, Henri Paul, who was also the hotel's security chief. The crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Tragically, in the early hours of August 31st, the car crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. The vehicle was traveling at excessive speed in an attempt to evade pursuing photographers. Henri Paul lost control, and the car struck a concrete pillar. Diana, Dodi Fayed, and Henri Paul were all severely injured in the crash. Diana was rushed to the hospital, but despite medical efforts, she died a few hours later from internal injuries. Dodi and the driver also died at the scene. The aftermath, investigation, and public reaction. Diana's death sent shockwaves worldwide. Millions mourned the loss of the people's princess, and tributes poured in from around the globe. Investigations concluded that the crash was caused by Henri Paul's reckless driving while intoxicated, and the aggressive pursuit by paparazzi. However, conspiracy theories and questions about the circumstances of her death persisted for years. The funeral and legacy. Princess Diana's funeral was held on September 6, 1997, at Westminster Abbey. The event was watched by an estimated 2.5 billion people worldwide, reflecting the deep connection the public felt with her. Her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, walked behind her coffin, a poignant symbol of loss and Continuity. Conclusion. A life cut short princess. Diana's death was a tragic end to a life lived in the spotlight but marked by extraordinary compassion and strength. Though her life was brief, her legacy continues to inspire millions. The haunting of Princess Diana. Ghostly legends and royal haunts. Even decades after her tragic death, the memory of Princess Diana continues to captivate the world. Not just through her legacy, but through eerie tales that suggest her spirit still lingers in royal places, watching over the family she once belonged to. The legend of Diana's ghost, stories of Diana's ghost, have circulated among palace staff, royal watchers, and paranormal enthusiasts for years. According to these accounts, her presence is often felt in the corridors and windows of royal residences, where she once lived. The wedding day haunting. Charles and Camilla. One of the most chilling tales comes from the day Prince Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles in April 2005. On that day, several palace staff and eyewitnesses claim to have seen a mysterious figure, described as a woman in a flowing white dress, appearing at the windows of Buckingham Palace and Clarence House, where Diana had lived. The apparition was said to resemble Diana herself, standing silently and watching the wedding procession with a somber, haunting presence. What does the ghost represent? Many believe that Diana's ghost at the wedding symbolizes her restless spirit, perhaps unable to find peace amid the upheaval and heartbreak her life endured. Others see the apparition as a reminder of the complex history and unresolved emotions surrounding Charles, Camilla, and Diana's shared past. The ghosts of royal tragedy. Princess Diana and Anne Boleyn haunting together. The British monarchy's centuries-old history is filled with tales of grandeur, power, and restless spirits. Among the most famous spectral legends are those of Princess Diana, the People's Princess, and Anne Boleyn, the ill-fated second wife of King Henry VIII. Surprisingly, these two royal ghosts are said to haunt some of the same royal residences, linked by tragedy, mystery, and enduring fascination. Anne Boleyn. The queen who never rested, Anne Boleyn was executed in 1536 at the Tower of London, accused of treason and adultery. Since then, her ghost has been reportedly seen wandering the Tower grounds, carrying her head under her arm or appearing as a sorrowful figure in Tudor-era clothing. Her spirit is said to be restless, forever tied to the tragedy of her downfall and the ruthless politics of the Tudor court. Princess Diana's ghost joins the haunting fast forward nearly 5 centuries to the late 20th century. Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997 sent shockwaves through the royal family and the world. Strange. Reports soon emerged that her spirit, too, lingered in royal places, including Kensington Palace and nearby royal residences with deep historical significance, where their ghosts cross paths. One of the most eerie claims is that Diana's ghost has been seen in the Tower of London, the same historic fortress where Anne Boleyn met her fate. Witnesses have described a lady in modern attire appearing alongside a figure in Tudor dress. Princess Diana's life was filled with joy and sorrow, triumph and tragedy, but above all, it was defined by her compassion, strength, and unwavering spirit. Though she left us too soon, her legacy lives on, in the hearts of her sons, in the causes she championed, and in the millions she inspired around the world. Thank you for joining us to remember the People's Princess, a woman who changed the world not just by title, but by heart. If you found her story moving, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, keep her memory alive.